you are the strategist archetype, which is the ruler, the sage, or the warrior. You have to face the fact that in the midst of your transformation, as you're making the jump from where you're at to where you're going to be, there are some self-sabotage triggers you need to be aware of. And if you see them, once you see them, your awareness will actually create the way out. So that's what we're going to be talking about here, are the self-sabotage triggers of the strategist. Before we do that, though, let's talk about one of the great strategists of all time, Napoleon Bonaparte. It was in his mid-20s that this military genius started campaigns that would win him fame. And by the time he was 30, all of Europe was flying the flag of France. But the problem with sometimes a strategist is that we see our strategy and our way as the only way. And Napoleon loved to have control, not just over the nations that he was conquering, but also the armies, because he knew that it was his brain that separated him from everyone else and everyone else who'd come before him. All of his generals, all of his leaders had to report directly to him at this time, now Emperor Napoleon. And that was fine when the landmass they covered was small, but as it grew in size, it became impractical. Really, his downfall began with how he faced up against Russia. And this is exactly where you see someone who wasn't able to make a transition. He could have transitioned into more of a ruler than a conqueror, but he didn't. He pushed and pushed and pushed, and he believed that the same design that won all of these other times would continue to win. And one of those built inside of that was just the belief and thought and feeling that he was invincible and that their ways were smarter and better. So in the campaign into Russia, they actually had a slash and burn, a scorched earth mentality. And as the campaign into Russia got worse, his armies couldn't even eat off of the land. They were eventually beaten back and forced to retreat from Moscow. And then as there was weakness, all these other nations that he had conquered now also fought back, and Napoleon and France shrunk to the size that they are today. And this, my friend, is the perfect example of what it looks like when someone is able to move from where they're at into something new, but instead they sabotage. Before we get into how to overcome self-sabotage, let's first talk about what it is. Funny enough, sabotage is a French word, and it means to maliciously destroy something. So self-sabotage is when you are purposely breaking something that ruins an opportunity for yourself, by yourself. So it's just this, it is a weird cycle that all of us go through. The reason it exists, my friend, is because it is protecting you from the unknown. So I want you to picture this. Imagine your life and your transformation. You are here, right here, in this place, and you want to get to here. So from here to here, and between here and here, there's a drawbridge. It's one of those old rope kind. And you start walking across that old rope bridge. It feels kind of shaky. You're not really sure about it. It feels good in the beginning, so you start to cross it. By the time you get halfway across that bridge, it starts to shake. And you're looking all the way across at the other side saying, I could get there, or this bridge could break. You, at that point, have the opportunity to look backwards, see where you came from, and return. A lot of people opt to go back. That's oftentimes the role that self-sabotage is playing, is to get you to go back and not to go forward. And one of the biggest things that happens anytime where people don't actually gain the benefit of their action is when they give up. So a lot of times self-sabotage is keeping you from either starting or finishing the thing that you started. So let's go into some places and look at specifically where you might be self-sabotaging. So we have three specific people that we are going to be looking at here. That is the ruler, that is the warrior, and it is the sage. And all of us are built a little bit differently. But in that, each of these archetypes has a little bit kind of similar tripping points. And so let's talk about that. First off, the way that we see these, the easiest way to look at it is what are the innate fears of each of the groups. So if you are a ruler, you are afraid of losing respect. You are afraid of sometimes losing direction. And so sometimes a ruler might continue on in a direction even though maybe like Napoleon, it was time to reevaluate the direction. They're so afraid of a shift. They have to keep doing the same thing. And so oftentimes a ruler will get good at something and they only perpetuate that thing, never exploring new modalities and new parts of themselves. So they're afraid of losing control, afraid of losing respect. And when that happens, they can become overbearing. They can actually, all three of these archetypes can become controlling. They can either withdraw or they pull their fangs come out and they fight, because that's the strategists, typically speaking, are less afraid of conflict than all of the rest of us. So a ruler, you're afraid of losing respect. And so that's something that as you're halfway across the bridge, you're like, there's no one with you. No one's following you. No one cares. And it can feel difficult sometimes to have that place of you're not really sure whether or not what you're doing is going to garner the attention of other people. The hero is what they love to fight. They love to win. They're driven by winning. They're driven by achievement. And so their fear is losing. Their fear is losing control. And so what they can do is sometimes, just like a ruler, both of these can become very domineering, very overbearing, very abrupt, mean sounding, not listening. And all three of these, what they can do is they can choose action and fighting over connection, over creativity, and over curiosity. They just begin to narrow, and they start to just chop other things off and go. Now the sage, you are the information person, you are the teacher, you are the researcher, and you're motivated by being right, by being smart, and you may tend to withdraw, shut down, and over-research stuff. You could typically go into research mode, and the truth is that there's so much information that's out there, you're never going to come to an end of that. So how do we get past that? How do we, first off, I think notice and see that these can become tendencies for you when you're stepping into things. And really when you sense yourself feeling overbearing, you want to fight for no reason, you feel maybe even anger, you disrespect. When you sense yourself going into that research nook for no reason, I want you to notice first off that this fear is happening. This is happening because you're afraid. And that's a good thing. It means you're halfway across the bridge. It means you are about to cross into the threshold of something new. It may mean that you should really just go back to where you started from. It might mean that you need to avoid, there's something inside of you warning you to go, in terms of going any further. But most likely, these things are here because it's like you're at the edge of yourself. And if you take another step, it is going to, the transformation begins just past this point. And transformation, I would say that we need to embrace a new version of you. And to go past all of these things, you're going to have to infuse a belief with a feeling. A belief with a feeling. So belief with a feeling moving forward, moving across the bridge, is faith. And faith is belief that you can feel. Belief and feeling that would pull you backwards, that's what's flaring up here. That's called fear. It's called unbelief. These are the things that are there to stop you. And so what must you do to keep going? The very first thing is, I'm going to tell you that the things that you are isolating yourself from, you're doing that, like that's your self-preservation. So whatever you're trying to isolate yourself from, we actually need to open the doors to. So first off, the very first one is you need to find peace. Inner peace. If you want to see how a warrior embraces peace, Sun Tzu's The Art of War, you'll see that all over. And that Marcus Aurelius and and all of the letters that he wrote to himself, you will find that right there. You need to embrace peace in order to fight, because you're not fighting because you're angry or because you hate what's in front of you. The reason you should be fighting is because you love what's behind you. Okay, that's the second point. So first is peace, next is connection. Find a way to connect with people. Find a way to remember why you fight, because you are driven by a fight. You are driven by whether it's a fight to be right or a fight to achieve or to have something or to make something happen or establish something. You're driven by this thing, but it's best if you can connect it with people. Okay, remember the faces of the people you're fighting for, if it's clients or if it's your family or if it's for a group in society. Remember who you fight for. So it's reconnecting. So first start with peace. Next, we reconnect. Okay, and then finally, I would say open the door to a little bit of curiosity. So having some curiosity opens the door, because it's like you're here for a reason. Ask yourself, why am I here? What can I do about it? What does this present me now that wasn't presented when I was on the other half of this bridge? These help you to reframe the move forward. You're feeling afraid because, my friend, you are alive, and alive is a good thing. Self-sabotage is just going to pull you right back to where you're at. So reconnect, find peace, become curious again, and finally create something new. And so before you continue the cross and go across, before you go across, reimagine this new thing that you're creating. It might be a new way for people. It might be a new book. There's something that I want you to reimagine, but it has to be you're creating something for someone else and not just you. So anytime you notice these feelings pressing on you, find peace, people, like connection, creativity, and connect, create, curiosity. Find those things, find yourself reconnected with your vision, and watch what happens when you don't stop and you move forward and you get all of the momentum that comes from continuous action. Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop.